Listening Test 9. You will hear a number of different recordings and you will have to answer the questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 sections. Write all your answers in the question booklet. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer all your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to Section 1. Section 1. You will hear a university student radio station broadcast. First, look at questions 1 to 5 on the form. You will see that there is an example which has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation relating to this will be played first and repeated.
And it's a bright sunny morning here at Portsmouth University Radio, the radio station that brings you all the news and lots of the fun non-news from our wonderful campus and the city we live in. I'm your host, Mike, and with me is...
Rita. Hi, guys.
So, Rita, what's on the menu this morning?
Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. First, you have another chance to look at questions 1 to 6. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 6.
And it's a bright sunny morning here at Portsmouth University Radio, the radio station that brings you all the news and lots of the fun non-news from our wonderful campus and the city we live in. I'm your host, Mike, and with me is...
Rita. Hi, guys.
So, Rita, what's on the menu this morning?
As usual, Mike, we'll start off with the most important, most exciting and interesting news for all those thousands of our highly intellectual, very serious listeners. Sports!
Right. Good news from the women's soccer team last night, I hear.
Sure is. They thrashed Southampton by, would you believe it, not 4, not 5, but 6 goals to 0. Nothing. 0. So the team's looking good for the Southern England University League that starts this Saturday.
Did you see the game, Rita? I wanted to, but was stuck in the lab playing with rats.
See the game? Against our closest rivals? Do you think I'd have missed it? Great game.
So, who scored?
No surprises here. Molly Mbeka scored the first 3, all in the first half. Susie Smith, last year's top scorer, hit the net 5 minutes into the second half, followed 2 minutes later by Joan Michael. Then Molly finished off the massacre just before the final whistle.
Fantastic players, great team. All our listeners know Susie Smith, of course, the blonde dynamite, and Joan Mitchell from last year. But Molly is new on campus, a first-year postgraduate medical student, all the way from Ghana, where she played for the national team. Top scorer. An amazing 25 goals in international matches last season. African Woman Player of the Year.
Look at questions 7 to 10. Now listen to more of the conversation between Mike and Rita and answer questions 7 to 10.
Yeah, she's fantastic. She came very close to scoring more, but Southampton hemmed her in really tightly after they saw what she can do.
I heard she could turn professional tomorrow if she wanted to, but prefers to enjoy the game as an amateur and study to become a doctor.
That's true. OK, and how about the men's soccer team, Mike?
Do I have to speak about this, Rita? A disaster. Played away at Bristol. I won't be surprised if some of them are too embarrassed to come back. Lost 6-2, and Bristol had their best 2 players watching from the sidelines because of injury. Let's change the subject.
Good idea. No other sporting news today, but lots coming up this weekend. Now to the bad news from the Students' Union.
Really bad news. Prices in the cafeteria and bar are going up by an average of 10% as from Monday. 75p for a cup of coffee. £4 for a pint of bitter. My favourite beer.
So, complain. There's a demonstration planned for outside the Students' Union building at noon tomorrow. See you there, and you can phone us now, 8759 765, to tell us what you think.
That is the end of section 1. You now have some time to check your answers.
Now turn to Section 2. Section 2. You will hear a woman talking about the local area in her town. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now listen carefully to the information talk and answer questions 11 to 15.
Hello everyone, and welcome to my welcome talk on this area of town organized by your Neighborhood Watch team. First of all, I'd like to talk about local supermarkets. Cost Cut Supermarket is about a 10-minute walk from here down Whiteley Road. It's nice and close, but it doesn't have that varied a choice. It's got the essentials though, so if it's just that you need, then it's fine. The other is Super Shop Supermarket. It's a typical large supermarket. There's a large car park, and they have everything you could imagine. Finally, if it's late at night, we have the Late Shop. It's just around the corner, but it just has a few basics. It's more expensive, of course, than the supermarket, but in an emergency, it's a real lifesaver. If you're busy and can't go shopping easily, you can do all your shopping online with Super Shop, and they deliver the same day for free if you spend in excess of $20. There is also a local company called Bio Deli that offers a bio delivery service. They arrive in the early hours on weekdays and can leave milk, butter, cheese, fruits, vegetables, eggs, and bread. The stuff is of good quality, but a little more expensive. It's a nice luxury, though, to have things delivered and waiting for you when you get out of bed. You can order everything on their website after creating an account. There are lots of good restaurants locally, but there are only 3 that are walkable from here. The nearest is an Italian restaurant on Talbot Avenue. They do good pizzas and pasta, as well as some more imaginative dishes. They also deliver. I use it so often, I even know the number, which is 856-357. There is also an Italian delicatessen there, and you can get authentic Italian cheese, meats, oils, and wines. As well as the Italian, there's an Indian restaurant on the same road. I personally don't like this kind of food, but the place is supposed to be good, and they offer delivery too. Finally, there is a Turkish restaurant on Bushy Road. They do wonderful food. I can especially recommend the vegetable starters. They do lots of fantastic things with aubergines, tomatoes, chickpeas, beans, and lentils. It doesn't deliver, and you should also make sure you get a reservation on weekends, as it can get pretty busy there.
You now have some time to look at questions 16 to 20. Now listen to the rest of the information talk and answer questions 16 to 20.
I'd like now to talk about a wonderful local facility called Queen's Park. It's around a 10-minute walk from here, and the main entrance is in the north of the park on Albin Road. When you go in, there's a map on the left so you can orientate yourself. On the immediate right, there's a children's play area, which has the usual swings, roundabouts, seesaws, and other fun stations. It's not supervised at all, so you should keep an eye on your child if they're playing there. From the main entrance of the park, there's a walking path right around the perimeter. Between all the paths, there's a woodland, which is lovely for rambling through. There are 3 other entrances to the park at the other points of the compass. From each corner of the park, there are paths that meet right in the center. There, you can find a stage, where sometimes people do concerts or an open-air play in summer. That's really fun. If you want to know the schedule of events there for the summer, just go to the park website. If you want tickets to any performances, make sure you book early, as they sell out really fast. Just to the west of the raised stage, which is on the left of it if you're looking at the plan, there is a cafe that does hot and cold food and drinks. They have limited space inside, but when it's good weather, they have plenty of chairs and tables outside. In front of the east gate, there is a bike park with all the things that kids like to go up and down on with their bikes and skateboards. You'll probably want to keep your dog away from this place if you have one, as all the movement and shouting will overexcite it. Just to the east of the north gate is a bowling green. It's surrounded by a high hedge to keep people out, as the grass must stay in good condition. It's all very private, but they're quite friendly if you want to join. Finally, to the north of the west gate of the park, there is the tennis club. It's a membership club, but they do allow you to play there if you're not a member. You just need to pay extra for the courts.
That is the end of section 2. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turn to section 3. There are 2 students discussing an assignment. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25.
Hi Melanie, what did you think of the assignment that we got today? It looks interesting, doesn't it?
Yes, Ellen. I've always been interested in recycling, but there's a lot of research to do.
Yes, there are a lot of things I'm unsure of, so it's going to be good working with you.
OK. Well, why don't we start by making a flowchart from the notes our tutor gave us?
Yes, so on one side we could have the paper production cycle, here on the left, and on the other side the recycling.
Good idea. Let's start at the top with the production. The first step in the process is to get the raw materials.
Yes, and they tend to come from pine forests.
OK. And then the bark is removed from the outside of the tree, and after that, the wood is chopped up. That's the first 3 stages.
It sounds a bit complicated after that. It says water is added, and then the mixture is heated and made into pulp. This will be the thick paste that is used to make paper.
Yes, you're right, because after that they use a machine to make the paper, and we can put that right in the centre of the flowchart, because it's also where the recycled paper joins the process.
Yes. So, once the paper has been produced in the machine, what happens then?
Well, I think we should write print as the next step because this is when newspapers, magazines, etc. are produced. And we could also add that they have to be distributed to stores and people's homes.
Right. Then the recycling bit starts. The old paper's collected, and then it says it's taken somewhere so that someone or something can sort it. I imagine there are different kinds of paper, or things like paper clips that need to be removed.
Yes. Let's have a step after that. Now, how did our tutors say they do this? Oh yes, it involves chemicals. So, how is your chemistry?
Well, not very good, I'm afraid. But this is how they remove ink, so this is definitely going to need a bit of research.
Right. The last step in the recycling section is similar to the last step in the production process, with heating and pulping, before the cycle begins again.
Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
So, I think going through the processes helped. Now we need to decide how we're going to do this assignment.
Yes. I guess what we need to do is take the processes and divide them up between us. But we could start thinking about an introduction.
Yes, okay. Well, I can start doing that. I think I have enough to go on already.
Good. And there are a few areas where we need a lot more information. I think I'll start with something easy. Let's say the paper collection. I could go to the resource centre to do some research.
Well, I think a better idea would be to approach someone who's involved in the process. What about contacting the council?
Oh, good idea. Yes, I'll do that instead. They're bound to have some information. And I know just the thing to add to our work to make it even more interesting.
And what's that?
Well, in my last assignment, I added a few pictures, and the feedback I got was that this wasn't academic enough. So what might really bring it to life would be to include some data, provided we can find some.
Yes, that sounds excellent. Well, we certainly have a lot to do, and not much time to do it in.
You're right. I think we have about 5 weeks, so I suggest we create a plan of work today. The end of the month is nearly 3 weeks away, and then we have a few days holiday.
Yes, so let's see if we can get the first draft done by then, so we can take a short break.
OK. Then, after the break, we'll have just over a week to complete it. I wonder if we could get someone to review our work for us a few days before the deadline, so we can make some final changes. What about your friend, Henry?
Well, the best person would be our tutor. Henry's very good, but he's taking a whole week's holiday, and there won't be enough time when he returns.
OK then. That's fine.
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turn to Section 4. Section 4. You will hear part of an agriculture lecture on sheep farming in Iceland. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good morning, everyone. Today in this agricultural lecture, we're going to look at an unusual farming practice. Iceland is famous for many things. We've all heard of the lunar landscape, the volcanoes, the fishing, the beautiful people and the expense, but not many of us know much about the sheep industry there. Sheep farming is practiced in sparsely settled areas throughout Iceland, with about 2,000 farmers engaged in it. Sheep farming in Iceland is as old as the settlement of Iceland itself. To this day, farmers are rearing their sheep by methods established by centuries of tradition, with most farms still owned and operated by families. Icelandic sheep are short-tailed and belong to a breed formerly common in northwestern Europe, but now only to be found in very few areas of the world. The Icelandic sheep is a direct descendant of the sheep first brought to the island by the Viking settlers, and has not been crossbred by importing other breeds. It is a strong, hardy breed, which has adapted well to the harsh Icelandic conditions that influence the composition of the plants the sheep graze on. The lambs also move freely throughout extensive wild pastures in pristine mountainous landscapes. The muscle has a high proportion of omega-3 fatty acids and iron, giving the meat its wild game flavor. The distinctive taste is a result of the wild pastures and the aromatic and spicy herbs on which the lambs graze. Icelandic farmers, along with scientists, have been involved in sheep breeding for decades, aiming to produce high-quality meat. The breeding is unique in that more than 90% of the sheep stock is registered in a breeding database, where scientists and farmers can use the information to improve their production. Breeding advances have also increased due to the regular use of the country's best rams for breeding across the country. From the beginning on, the main emphasis in the breeding of Icelandic lamb has been on higher quality of meat, and to do this, the focus has always been on increased muscle buildup. However, over the last 2 decades, farmers have put an equal effort into decreasing fat. Iceland is in Europe, although very far north. It therefore follows the European seasonal management of sheep. The Icelandic lambs are born in spring. A few weeks after the lambing in May, sheep used to be sent to run free and graze in mountain pastures until autumn, feeding on the rich and nourishing vegetation. However, as a result of the recent reductions in flocks, animals are increasingly kept in home pastures. Farmers gather their flock in the autumn. Usually, the roundup is carried out on horseback with the assistance of sheepdogs. Each sheep farmer uses earmarks in order to recognize his livestock, and the process can take up to a week. During this time, participants stay overnight in mountain huts located throughout the highlands. After the gathering, the sheep are all sorted into designated pens, according to ownership. Many people, farmers or not, come to watch or take part in this event on the last day, which is usually followed by a big celebration the same night. This is a tradition cherished by Icelanders. One problem Icelandic sheep farmers face is maintaining fences, as the harsh climate in winter often means normal fencing can be easily damaged, and replacing the damaged areas can be expensive and time-consuming. To combat this, Many sheep farmers in Iceland often use temporary fencing that can be taken down in winter when the flocks are in shelter. Temporary fences are held by reasonably sturdy fence posts with lighter sentinel tread-ins between, which are lighter posts. These hold the polywire, which is a lightly electrically charged cable that ensures the sheep do not break through. The polywire can be unwound or brought in using a reel, which is attached to a fence post at the start of the fence. The temporary electric fencing system farmers choose must be fit for purpose, so that it can create an effective barrier against the number of livestock being controlled. Part of this process is using a suitable voltage that will deter sheep from touching the fence, but will not harm them. In order to monitor this, an alert is periodically hung from the polywire. These provide a warning to the farmer if the fence voltage drops below the level required for effective stock containment. The voltage charge does not need any type of battery source and is solely produced by a solar energizer, which is mounted on a fence post.
That is the end of section 4. You will now have half a minute to check your answers. This is the end of listening test 29. In the IELTS test, you would now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the listening answer sheet.